Welcome, everybody. This is a meeting of the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees. It's October 15th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Give me one moment here. The board did meet in closed session this evening, and we will have those announcements from Trustee Aguila.
Good evening. We met in closed session, and the item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employee Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, and we gave direction. The other item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 was public employee discipline, dismissal, or release, and that was information only. The next item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, public employee evaluation. That was superintendent, and it was information only. The other item we discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, and that was information only.
All right, thank you. Approval of our agenda this evening. It stands as is.
I'd like to move approval of tonight's agenda.
Okay, first by Trustee Cooper,
I'll second.
second by Trustee Mack. Sorry.
Okay.
All those in favor of approval of our agenda this evening? 7-0. Okay. Thank you. I will adjourn the meeting in honor of, or in memory of, Mary Ann Sinconin. She passed away this last week. She was a past principal in our district and a past teacher, went on to do amazing things when she left NUSD. But she also did, whenever we needed a principal to fill in, I know she filled in at Rancho when we had an interim position there. She said, no problem, I'll be back to help out. And she did that. So I will be adjourning the meeting in her memory. So. Moving on to our consent agenda, but before I do that, if you want to speak to an item on the agenda or not on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. That's how you'll be able to speak. You have 3 minutes to come before the podium here. What I do is I call 3 names at a time, and you just come up and you have the 3 minutes, which is right there on the timer. Please stick to the 3 minutes. And if you go over, I'll just ask you to please wrap up if you could do that. If you want to speak to an item that we're speaking of on the agenda, we'll make sure we put you in the right spot to do so. When it is a non-agenda public comment, the board is unable to respond back. So we're here to listen, obviously, and that's no problem. We're here to listen to what you have to say, but just know that you won't get a response back. All right, so consent items. Any board member would like to pull any item at this time? We have no changes or anything before us, so that stands as is on all the items.
I'll move the consent items, all of them.
Okay, we have a first by Trustee Millerick, a second by Trustee Nell to approve our consent agenda. All those in favor? 7-0. All right, and just to note, one of our long employees, Lillian Rincon, is retiring, and we just approved her resignation on there of 27 years with NUSD. So I'm going to give her. She currently sits out in our foyer area, and she welcomes you as you come into the district and directs you wherever you need to go. So, all right. Our next item is Lou Sutton. I know you're here. You're in the house, and you're here to present. And so you are up next. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening to our board members, Superintendent Chris Koska. Good evening to all our wonderful teachers and our parents here. Thank you so much. We are Lou Sutton. These are our wonderful 5th grade, some of our wonderful 5th grade students up here. I just want to say thank you so much to our board for providing us the space for our students to come and have a voice and share what kind of matters to them. And tonight it is about our Zen zones at Lou Sutton. And some of the items I just placed in front of you are some of the tools of our Zen zones at Lou Sutton. So you can enjoy them while they're presenting and just kind of look over them. But it's not my voice you want to hear, it's our students' voices. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to them now. This is Delia and Jesus, Parker, and Bella. All right, let's give them a nice round of applause. They're a little nervous.
When we are in a place where we can't calm down, something happens to our brains. Our amygdala takes over from our thinking brains and we react from emotion.
We go into a fight, flight, or freeze response state. We react without thinking it through. We do not think clearly.
Our Zen zones help us get back to a clear headspace. Our brains are given the opportunity to calm down with calming and engaging items in a safe place. Once we're calm, we can have a conversation about how we felt.
We can use comforting items like stuffed animals, cushions, and blankets. Play-Doh and kinetic sand helps us as sensory items. We have glitter wands and coloring pages to calm us, and books and journal pages to engage our brains. Then we can walk back out calmly without issues. Then we can focus again.
It helps us if you have us practice using these spaces when we aren't upset. Show us our options and give us guidelines on how to use them. Talk to us how the zone makes us feel.
I love the Zen zone because I calm myself.
What I like about the Zen zone is that it's a place where we can go to relax when feeling anxious.
What I like most about the Zen den is that when us as students are crying or just having a rough day or just need a little time to ourselves, the Zen den is always there for us.
What I like the most about the Zen zone is that right when you walk in the Zen zone, you feel super calm and relaxed. It's like a bubble that feels like a safe place when you're trying to calm down. Thank you for listening to our Zen zone presentation and speeches.
Thank you so much. They did an awesome job. You guys did great. It really is wonderful seeing the students using these zones at our school, and we just want to really encourage every school to give them a try because it's really helped. So
Is there one
thank
in
you.
every classroom there?
Not yet. That's
Not
the
yet.
overall goal.
Yeah.
I think fifth grade's doing a lot
Yeah.
of work with them, but we'd like to have them everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have any questions for them.
Yeah, any questions for students?
Where can I get these?
Yeah, yeah. This is like addicting, I mean.
I have one that I use in the classes.
It's really cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. You did a great job.
You're welcome.
Can we do a picture? All up here in the front. Just come right up here. And Leslie will take your picture right
Yeah, I
there.
don't steal this.
Oh, come on, I know you can take it home.
It's cool.
Good job.
Yeah, me too.
Here's,
Thank you.
here you go. Here you go.
Good job, you guys.
He took mine. Thank you
I
for
gave it.
sharing that.
Yeah.
Nice job, you.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
Smell like pumpkins.
All right, we'll have our announcements now from our student board members and our trustees. So we'll go ahead and begin with DJ. Are you starting or? Okay.
Hi, my name is DJ. I'm a senior at Marin Oaks. Marin Oaks began a student leadership partnership with other alternative schools in Marin. We work directly with the Youth Leadership Institute, and we are focusing on social justice topics. The first two meetings have been centered around getting to know each other before we dive into deeper topics. So right now we're just trying to get to know all the people from the other schools and see how their schools work. And then we're going to start picking a topic to work on in our community. And then today we went to a play at the Marin Theater Company to watch Sovereignty. And it's always a fun experience to watch a play and learn about the history. So today it was about Cherokee Nation and the Treaty of Echota and the Trail of Tears. And then we finished the first quarter on Friday, and we have finals Thursday and Friday. New students will be enrolled on Monday, and we will be up to 90 students. The large number of students has impacted some of our smaller class sizes, and has taken a lot of adjustments for all of us returning students who enjoy the smaller school setting.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Deruvo, and I'm a junior at San Marin High School. So, over the past few weeks, I have some exciting news. Last week, our speech and debate team competed at UC Berkeley, and we had a duo in our talented team make it to quarterfinals versus some of the best teams in California, including schools like Irvington. Our homecoming is underway, which is very exciting. We have a parade down Grant Avenue this Thursday. Our homecoming game versus SR under the lights this Friday at 7 p.m. Let's go! And then our annual dance this Saturday. So kids on campus are more ecstatic than ever, and it just makes the environment at school so much fun to be around. So we also had a big moment for the lights this Saturday, although MC might have massacred our team. Put that fact beside, and the spirit of our school was through the roof. I had fun personally dancing in a horse costume through the entire time as Misty the Mustang. We also had our ASB barbecue today to raise money for homecoming, and it was very wonderful because our community was stronger than ever. We all gathered and cooked cheeseburgers and hot dogs at lunch to raise money for homecoming, and we had so many extra burgers at the end of it. We actually talked to our on-campus officer, Officer Wagner, who is a great guy, and he delivered the food to Novato PD, so that's where all of our leftovers went, and they had a nice lunch. So, yeah, we're currently doing our best through our actions to build community culture through our efforts and to build long-term success, a good legacy, and an unforgettable story at San Marin. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Eva Gogus. I'm a junior at Novato High. We have quite a lot going on. So today was the first day of ROTC's pie sales. And students really loved it. We had samples today go out. We are super excited that San Marin got their lights approved. A bunch of Novato High students went to the game on Saturday, was it? Yeah. And we just really like how we can finally have the Friday night lights. Yeah. So the 29th and the 30th of this month, we are going to have a one-town dine and donate at Italian Delight. We usually do a cross-town rival competition, but we thought it meant more to come together between the two schools and to support each other. The proceeds from this dine and donate will be going to the 3 San Marin families who were affected by the car crash. So going into homecoming, ticket sales started today. Floats are looking really great. We have our parade on the 1st. And we're really ahead of the game with all of our planning and stuff. So the 27th through the 31st is our Spirit Week. The 31st is our rally. The 1st is our parade. And the 2nd is our game versus San Marin and our homecoming dance. We had our first Saturday Academy this past weekend, which was a really great success. A lot of people came for extra help. And we also had a leadership day to work on our floats, so we got a lot done there. Boys basketball had a fundraiser has a fundraiser this weekend. It's a barbecue and a car wash in the Novato High parking lot from 12 to 4 p.m. And it sounds really fun. We hope it goes really well. It has been a super crazy week with all the changes due to Bite of Reality for the seniors, PSATs, and not having block days or office hours, but we are looking forward to the PSATs tomorrow. Cross Country has a Chipotle fundraiser on the 23rd, and the winter sports are starting on November 4th. And Buzz, our mascot, is making it to a whole bunch of sporting events. He made it to the last game against SR, which was really fun because our 2 mascots were like butting heads. But anyway, Next Friday is MSA's Big Band Dance in the old gym. It's always a really fun and successful event. It starts at 5, and that's just where different bands and dance classes will perform, and it's a fun event. And then next Wednesday is Rock Band's first concert at Sweetwater Music Hall in Mill Valley. Yeah, and that's it.
Great. So just back to Sammer and Elizabeth, you said the parade's on Thursday, so it got changed because of the Friday night football game. So that's usually it's on Fridays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The reason why it's on Thursday this year is to make sure that we have as much time as possible to prepare for the game. I know on Friday, ASB decided to focus on just having the game to focus on because it's something that's so new for our community that it's building a lot of anticipation and excitement. So
Sure.
they decided to do the parade on Thursday
Okay.
because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Trustee Miller?
But just one question. So on Friday, there'll be both the JV game and the varsity game?
Exactly.
What time will they start?
So the varsity is at 7 p.m. and I am not sure myself actually what time the
4:30.
JV game starts.
Probably 4:30.
Probably around 4:30. Yes.
Okay. on the San Marin lighted field?
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
gonna be good.
I have no comments. Thank you very much.
Trustee Nell?
Yeah, I thought I'd report out the JLAC committee work, the Joint Legislative Action Committee, where we work with the rest of the trustees and superintendents in the county with the work that's going on in Sacramento. And last Friday, the 14th, was the deadline for Governor Newsom to either sign or veto bills. Sort of a interesting but useless statistic. Apparently, Governor Newsom is a high percentage vetoer compared to Jerry Brown and other past, but no one apparently holds a candle to Governor Schwarzenegger when it comes to vetoing legislation. So there's your useless government information fact for the day. I got some good news and some bad news. Primarily, we focus on legislation that affects public education, obviously. So I'll start with the good news. We are going to be able to put a facilities bond on the ballot, and we're going to have a new process for identifying how those funds can be used. Nothing's perfect, but I think it's going to end up being to our advantage should the facilities bond pass in the upcoming, I think it's next November's election. The bad news is, after years of opposition by the California School Board Association, the Education Coalition, which includes CTA, NFT, CSEA, the administrators group, the legislature passed the late start bill, which is going to basically force any non-rural public school districts to start no later than 8:30. And it's been the position of most of us that we should be able to identify when a school starts in our local communities. And having served on a similar committee years back for when to start at San Marin High School, it's a very, very difficult process. And
That was vetoed, correct?
that was it was not vetoed. It passed. The Governor Newsom signed it. So
Yeah.
we will. I think in some schools we're okay, other schools not, but we will be mandated to start school no later than 8:30. We're allowed to have 0 periods, but they won't pay us for it.
It's high school is 8:30 and 8 o'clock is middle school.
Thanks for the,
Yeah,
it's
just so-
8:30 at high school and 8 for middle school. So that's coming. We have a couple of years to implement it, and we will see. Some of the work that's been done around that locally is we dusted off the 2015 countywide transportation plan because essentially the thinking is this is going to get everybody on the road at the same time. There's a lot of concerns about that, and just some preliminary numbers that go back to 15. If we were going to try to ramp up our home-to-school transportation again, it would require something like $10 million on a countywide basis to get that going again. So the reason for the legislation is health reasons. They think that students need to get more sleep, and I'll just let that go. There's a lot of research on that. In addition to that, I've got if you're interested, about 22 pages of education-related legislation that either passed or was vetoed. There was a lot of ground made on controlling charter schools, which I think most of it is to the good, that local school districts will have a little more control over charter school applications and the way that charter schools are operated in the state of California. Something less related to specific legislative action is just to make everyone aware that the California state university system is just talking about increasing their qualifications for acceptance. We all know about A to G. Some of us are referring to this as A to H now, as they want to add quantitative reasoning as a requirement. So just if anyone wants to be aware, they think it's a good idea, bad idea, probably might want to look into that. You have the ability to weigh in, etc. And I'll keep you guys updated as well. So I think that concludes my report. So
Great,
thank you.
Trustee Gasson.
So last week I attended a vaping forum, which was put on by First Five, Marin Community Health and Human Services, and I think a couple other groups. It was really interesting. I was there with a mix of people, nurses, there were other trustees, principals, other professionals, and people from Kaiser. And it was a good overview of what's going on in Marin County, also what they're doing at the county level. And then as I was sitting next to this person who mentioned she was a trustee, I actually asked her thoughts on the vaping detectors and if they worked and stuff. So we chatted a little bit because I know that that's one of the things that we're looking at doing, and the technology on that is kind of questionable. She had the same input that I have heard, is that they're not very effective. So hopefully we can come up with something that will work. I also had the opportunity to visit San Marin High School with Superintendent Koska. That was great. That was yesterday, and great to be on campus, see where the new Performing Arts Center is going to be, seeing the construction and learning things and having flashbacks about 30 years ago when I was at high school. Also attended yesterday a not in our town event that was held here, and unfortunately I had a blank for the next date. I think the next meeting is not yet scheduled, but if anyone would like to attend with me the next time, it's usually the second Monday of the month, but that's a holiday in November. And this Thursday is my last Gab with Gaston for the year. It's 5:30 to 6:45 at the Vintage Starbucks. I have another event to get to for Sinaloa, so I actually put an end time, but I'm happy to see anybody between that time slot, and that's it.
Trustee Neal? I mean, Trustee Mack.
Predictably, of course, I was at the San Marin lights ceremony, turning them on. It was a fantastic experience. I've never seen so many people together in this town. I've lived in this town for more than 50 years. It's pretty impressive. And I was really impressed by not just the locals who showed up, but also the kids from Novato, the parents from Novato, the grandparents from all over town, and even families from Terra Linda and Santa Fe. Really, really impressive. And I just want to say thank you to all of the San Marin families that put their time and money to make this happen. 4 long years, and they made it happen. And it wasn't us. We just went along for the ride and helped them out. They did all the hard work, and I really appreciated that. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Cooper.
I had a chance to go to the same game, and it was an awesome experience. What excitement in the crowd, and I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to all the staff here that helped make that possible, as well as everybody all the staff members at San Marin that really made it an exciting event.
Trustee Gila?
Yeah. I attended the Golden Bell along with Trustee Cooper, and I just wanted to say that it was new people. It was the first meeting of the year, so there was new trustees, and this is where we get together and we try to show some appreciation to our teachers and some of our staff and some of the people that, we can't get everybody, but it's an attempt. And so lots of new faces and new ideas. And so moving forward and planning it. And so I look forward to the event, because we know that people really deserve to be thanked, but sometimes we just don't get a chance to do that. And I wanted to thank Trustee Cooper for just taking charge of that meeting and making it happen. So, and this is it for. Let's see, anything else? Nope, that's it.
Okay. Just to tack on to what Trustee Nell was talking about, the governor signed. He also vetoed, though, the bill that would allow 11th graders to not take the GASP, but take the SAT or ACT. So that got vetoed. So 11th graders would continue on taking the GASP. And the one that I was really following was full day kindergarten, and he vetoed that one too. I was not happy. Saturday was a busy day for us. We had the lights ceremony, so I was able to get to that. But prior to that, I was able to get to the Marin School of the Arts, had their, what's it called? Divine Wine and Food, and that was fun. And Trustee Mack was there, and Superintendent Koska was there, so we were able to do both of those. We were running from one place to the next, and we squeezed it all in. So that's it for me.
Good. I've been making the rounds, getting out to sites, trying to get into every classroom, and I've just seen so many great examples of teachers creating cultures of caring, cultures of competence, and cultures of excellence. So really proud of the work that's happening in our classrooms. I want to thank everybody that's here and those that aren't here for that good work. Also gotten a lot of great feedback from the minimum day that we had yesterday. It was led by our teacher leadership team members, and just it's been amazing to watch them learn and grow. As it's one thing to teach kids, it's another thing to teach adults, and they've taken a risk and they put themselves out there, and just really proud of the hard work that they're putting in and how that's paying off. We continue to have some students that are recovering from the tragedies that happened at the beginning of the school year, and I just want to say that they're still in our thoughts. Sometimes you get, a couple weeks away from that, and we forget that's happening, and that there are kids that are still fighting hard to get back to school, and those students are very much in my thoughts. As Debbie said, a couple of great events on Saturday. We're able to go to the MSA Divine Wine and Food fundraiser, which was great. I had to go to the football game, so I had to pass on the Divine Wine part, but did partake in the food part. The football game, I know this continues to be a controversial topic for some in our community. I was impressed by the way the lights were targeted onto our field and how the darkness outside the place where it was supposed to be lit up, and also with the volume. I was impressed by the way that this state-of-the-art lighting system and sound system work together to, I think, be respectful of the community. So we're excited that we have the lights on, looking forward to another game on Friday, and looking forward to maybe a different outcome. We're hoping for that different outcome. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our non-agenda public comment, I have 5 speakers. I will read the first 3 speakers. I have Maria Romero, Jana Morbitz, and Fran Rosoff. And just to remind you of the 3-minute each. So just come right up to the podium right here.
I was hoping to be last. Oh no, don't start again. Oh my God. All right. Sorry, I'm just not ready for you. Okay. I first want to do a land acknowledgement. I want to thank the Miwok ancestors for allowing me to speak here tonight. My name is Maria Romero. I am the ed specialist for the Counseling Enriched class at Novato High School. I'm also here on behalf of my department as SPED chair, and I'm also here as one of NFT's SPED representatives. On behalf of my ed specialist colleagues, I'm here to express our frustration, to express a feeling of overwhelm, to express our feeling of lack of support, and to express our feeling about some decisions that have been made by the board that we felt questionable at the very least. I want to share for sure at Novato High School, there's very low morale at the site. So I hope you understand the high and overwhelming expectations placed on ed specialists, and I want to share a little bit of that. We're expected to be present emotionally and mentally so we can help our students cope through their day. We are expected to be able to write well thought out, engaging, creative, differentiated curriculum for multiple subjects, curriculum that keeps our students in school engaged, and then we need to track our strategies and techniques for data. We need to put our lawyer cap on without the certificate or the pay to write legally defensive IEP reports. And then because we've been historically under-resourced, historically underserved, historically undercompensated, historically marginalized, we feel the need lately to be at everyone's table. And there seems to be a lot of tables with a lot of committees being formed, which is awesome because I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but we feel like we need to be part of that conversation. And by the way, all this within a 6-hour day. The other thing is that we do feel really underrepresented in the contract. There's no language protecting us from class size, from caseload caps. There's no language ensuring some sort of compensation for the abundance of extra hours ed specialists put for the district, to be so that our IEPs are in compliance, where our comparable districts offer ed specialists things like extra pet periods, stipends, extra paid time over the summer, placed on a different salary schedule. And I'm curious as to why we're not on a separate salary schedule. I meant to bring it up, but we have an entire page of responsibilities extra than our gen ed counterparts. And I only have 30 seconds left. I'm just gonna jump to, when we're talking about negotiations, 7% barely starts the conversation for us. When are we gonna be represented in the contract? When are we going to have specific language that talks about capping our caseloads, capping our class sizes? When are we gonna feel listened to have the resources that we need? We have questions around the director that was hired, and I don't have enough time because I'm looking at the clock. But I just have to tell you how nerve-wracking things have felt lately, being that somebody was hired who I do have respect for, but has little to no SPED experience, and little to no director experience. So I hope I touched everybody's points because I'm here representing a lot of people, and to my ancestors, I want to say, aho matakiase.
Hello. So yesterday in our TLTs, we had to decide what kind of person we were, and I went directly to the detail place. I'm a details person, I'm a numbers person. So when thinking about speaking tonight, I looked up numbers, I looked up statistics. I did find in 2018, Novato rents rose 4.6%, more than most teachers were given in that year. The average housing price is $822,000. We heard that last time as well, out of a lot of people's range. If I had kept my job in San Rafael, which is where I came from, my salary would be over $14,000 higher a year, and I would pay, have $3,000 less a year taken out in medical, a net of over $17,000. And then I just couldn't keep going with it. I don't know, my numbers just sort of stopped there, and all I could think about were my kids, and I was gonna try to do a quick change and put on my school shirt. And so I decided to come to you tonight as a parent of 2 students in NUSD. My children spend as many, if not more hours with their teachers as they do with me. And while I try not to be overbearing, I do expect and deserve the best for my kids. And as of now, I am absolutely getting it. My children spend the day with the most amazing people. At no point do I worry, hesitate, or think twice about dropping my kids off at school. 23-ish, and I have kids in 2 different first grades, 23-ish 6-year-olds go into 2 different rooms, each room. I don't know how old most of you are, but Wonder Woman spins around and becomes a superhero. So I think that's what the teachers do when they close the door. I don't know how they do it. They educate, they counsel, they care, they hug, they listen, they mitigate, and they guide our children. And at my site, they do all of that in Spanish. 6 hours later, 23 6-year-olds come out of that room happy and better than they were when they went in. I just don't know how they do that. So I asked my kids, why do you think your teachers are wonderful? My teachers are wonderful because they're nice. They help me learn. They like me. They let me do things, and they help me do stuff I don't know how to do. And I love her. And so I would also be remiss, I know we're here about NFT, but if I didn't mention the classified. I don't know what the job description is of a front office person. I'm not sure there's anything that it does not include. All of my children, there's only 2, we hope that if they do lose any teeth, they haven't yet, that they're at school, because I have no idea what to do, but Miss Sierra makes the necklace and they don't run once they have it on. Everybody knows how to do that, except me. Mr. Gabe, like a walking ball of fun. I don't know how he just bounces around and brings a smile to everyone's face. So my children have 11 years left with NUSD. I expect the best during each and every year that they're here, and that's going to become more difficult if we can't attract and retain the best teachers. Please put the money where the heart and soul of our district is, in the classroom with my kids. Thank you.
That's a hard speech to follow. Fran Rosoff, Novato Federation of Teachers, Elementary Vice President. Over the past decade, the average classroom teacher's salary has increased about 15.2%, but after adjusting for inflation, the average salary has actually decreased by about $1,800, or about 3%. The Economic Policy Institute notes that comparable professionals with similar education earn higher salaries. Nationally, teachers earn about 19% less than similarly skilled and educated professionals. This teaching penalty has increased significantly in the past 20 years, from approximately 2% in 1994 to about 19% in 2019. So, the high cost of living and commuting in the North Bay area has put a great deal of stress on classroom teachers. At the elementary level, if teachers worked strictly to their professional day, there would be no extra tutoring, spelling bees, CASP, test coordinators, field days, garden committees, or master teacher meetings. There would be no teacher liaisons for PTA meetings or ELAC committees. Teachers would not be at board meeting presentations, attend after-hour field trips, facilitate overnight field trip preparations, or make phone calls and emails after hours. They would not support local bond measures or parcel taxes by donating hours of their time at the phone banks. And each year, many Novato teachers leave our district for better paying jobs and take with them thousands of dollars worth of staff development and collegial collaboration, disrupting the continuity of individual school systems throughout Novato, time and time again. According to data from the California Federation of Teachers, taking into account salary and benefits, Novato teachers in the low and mid-range of our salary scale are making less than our comparable districts. The 1% salary increase the board has offered Novato teachers will continue to increase the disparity between the high cost of low teacher salaries. NUSD teachers are committed to the students they teach and enjoy teaching here. However, the intrinsic rewards of an educational career in Novato should not be used as rationale for inadequate compensation. Thank you.
Our last remaining speakers are Julia Cavanaugh and Karin McCormack.
I'm here as a parent. My name is Julia. I have a son, Lucas, in first grade at Loma Verde. My daughter is going to be in kindergarten next year. She is currently attending the preschools here in Novato. I was born and raised in Marin County. I grew up in San Anselmo. I know what this county does. I choose to live in Novato because I love my teachers. I love my schools. I want to be here, and I want my teachers to stay here. These teachers, most of them can't afford to live here. They can't come to Novato and San Marin High and go to the soccer games, football games, any of the games. They can't afford to live here. It's not fair. They have to commute all the way up north or east or wherever it is to come see our kids. They want to be here. They want to support. There was I'm also on the PTO board of Loma Verde. I am the treasurer. I choose to be involved because I can, because these teachers make me want to. I volunteer in the classrooms because they need help and because they can't do enough for us. They send emails at night. They take boxes and make books by themselves, stapling them with their hands, folding papers together. They care. They do things for our students. There are students in our classroom that cannot read. In first grade, it's not uncommon. These teachers stay after class. They read with them. They use Lexia with them. They are there because some kids don't have it at home. They say, don't worry, we're here to do it for you. I've been in the office, working in the front office, helping them out. A student comes in crying, they're upset, they got hurt. Not only does our front office staff help, but the teacher comes out of their lunchtime and they say, what's going on? Are you okay? Can I give you a hug? That's their time, that's their bathroom, that's their food, that's their time, but they are dedicated to our students. Their class sizes range from normal class sizes. We have a class of 30 kids. Do you know how many kids 30 kids is in one classroom with one teacher? It's a little out of control. It needs to be something that you guys allow them to let teach. We have, if all the teachers end up leaving and can't stay here and they have to go, they want to teach in their own communities, if these teachers that are end up retiring, we're not going to have the teachers here, and then families are going to leave too. Families will follow the teachers that they love. I have had teachers see my kids on the weekends while they're out shopping, come up and give them a hug. I've had teachers that just go above and beyond for my kids, and that is why I'm here, and that is why I volunteer, and that is why I am involved. And I don't expect what our teachers give us. I am just so pleased and privileged to have them as our teachers. Thank you.
Sorry, I took the long way around. At the last board meeting that was public, and agendized, I said I would say something positive. And so for the last 2 weeks, I've been walking around saying, say something positive, say something positive. I use it up in my classroom. Today we went kayaking with a bunch of 5th graders. We built a raft out of kayaks, and I watched my one student who hasn't done one collaborative thing all year, and since I've met him in about 2nd grade, stand up and work with a team to walk across the raft of kayaks to shake another person's hand. That's positive. I took a picture of it. I sent it to his mom. I'm going to put it on his desk and put underneath it that it's collaboration that got him there, and it's trust in other people. I hope that by the time he gets to high school, he'll trust other people and be positive. I've noticed that Novato teachers want the best circumstances for their students. We work ridiculously long hours and have super high expectations of ourselves and our students. The students, the community, the parents, they all trust us. In 5th grade, we add a new and complex global standard in reading, which requires 5th graders to read collections of fiction and nonfiction, not just one book at a time, but they need to note the author's perspective on a topic. We make them examine their own reader's perspective on the topic. Where are their thoughts and ideas coming from in digesting this material? And then we ask them to share with us. As they analyze a claim, and we ask them to form an opinion, and notice that they have to understand that bias is present. So my positive action is to continue to ask questions. In the spirit of research, which I love, numbers and problem solving, I'm going to ask, how are overstuffed classrooms in the best interest of students? How are creating splits in the best interest of students and teachers and families? And I am positively open to hearing any response. Ask for the facts. My positive acts is to have a positive presupposition that it is not us versus them. And this is a big reach for me because when I've asked over the past 2 years, I continue to be told that I'm not privy to the facts or they're public, so I should just search them out. My positiveness is going to push me forward into continuing to research how funds coming into this district can be applied appropriately and appropriately distributed while keeping the best interest of the #1 stakeholders each student in mind.
All right, so that concludes our non-agenda public comment. I don't have any more cards, so we will continue to move on with our meeting. Thank you for those who spoke and are here this evening. All right, we will move on to our first item. This is for this evening is our public hearing number 4 for our district elections. So I will open the public hearing. And I don't have anybody from the public to speak on this item that I know of. I don't have a blue card, so we'll give it a moment. All right, I will close this public hearing, and we'll move on to the discussion action item with the board, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Casca.
All right, thank you for having me. So our goal tonight is to present the proposed trustee area maps for discussion. These maps were developed by Cooperative Strategies with input from other members of the community. We've been working on this for a number of months. This is our fourth formal time talking about this. We've also had 2 community input sessions that were set aside different times outside of board meetings. As you all know, this began in March of 21, so we've been working on it for a while. So at our October 1st board meeting, trustees decided to remove some of the maps that we've been looking at. So we removed maps 1, 4, 5, and 6 from consideration. We made some additional modifications to map 7 based on community and trustee input, which resulted in a map 7A. So just a couple things to remember. As we've gone through this process, we've decided that when we're looking at this, we should make sure that trustee areas shall contain nearly equal numbers of inhabitants, will be drawn to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. The areas will be compact and contiguous as much as possible. They will respect communities of interest as much as possible. Each area will follow man-made and natural, not National Geographic, but natural geographic features as much as possible. And the trustees agreed that the demographer should not consider incumbents' residences as a criterion in drawing the trustee areas. So we're hoping that our public hearing 5 will be our final public hearing, although it doesn't need to be. We're hoping that that'll be held on November 5th, 2019. With that, I'll open it up to anything that our consultant, Larry, no? So we're just open it up to any questions, comments, a rich discussion around the maps. If you haven't seen the maps, there's a copy of each of them back on the back table. And next to the map is a breakdown of the demographics for the population that would fall into each trustee area.
All right, Trustee Miller.
So my understanding, and this is to help us keep moving, is that we agreed that we're focused on scenario 7, 7A, and 4B. So those are the ones I left. Is that?
Yeah, and we
where
brought
everyone
back
else thinks?
4A just to make it part of the mix. That's part of, that's in our packet as well, 4A, but we really had kind
And
of.
4A divided the Ignacio Valley in half, and I thought
Exactly.
we had moved away from that. It's
We
really
just wanted to make
these-
sure that we're absolutely at that point.
Yeah, so it's these 3, I believe, is where we are.
I think so. I agree. Is maybe that we can decide now, is there real consensus that we stick with Country Club and Loma Verde as one area? I felt there was. I just want to check in maybe with Trustee Nell, Trustee Mack, and Trustee Aguila, because I'll do whatever you guys, that's your area, and I could go either way on that. So, Trustee Aguila, are you good with the one area, or do you do?
I am.
You are, okay. I know originally you kind of expressed that but you've thought it through. And Trustee Mack, I know you were the sticking to one area.
I'm in agreement with Trustee
Yeah.
Gia that the Ignacio area, District 7, should stay one area.
Loma Verde and Country Club together, yeah. Okay. And Trustee Nell, I believe you're with them, yeah. Okay, so why don't we take away 4A, just to be clear on that. And now we're down to 4B, 7, and 7A. And what between 7 and 7A, it's very minimal in changes, but one of them is on 7, it's area 5 that goes above Nevada Boulevard.
Wait, which one are we looking at? 4B? Or
No, I'm looking at 7A.
Okay, just because 4B is still in play because really it's 3 scenarios, right?
Yeah, 3 scenarios. I was just saying what the difference between 7 and 7A was, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay, got it.
I don't know, am I doing all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so 7A is just that pink area that goes above Nevada Boulevard, where it says Lou Sutton. If you go right there, that is new.
Yeah, I got it.
That's the difference between 7
I wrote it all up.
and there's a little difference right there where Hill is. Just below Hill Education Center, there's a little bit more pink, or no, a little bit more of, yeah, I think it's the pink area, area 5, that is more there compared to 7. So it's some minor adjustments. There's nothing extreme.
Between scenario 7 and 7A, so the purple area crosses Novato here.
Yeah.
And this area comes across this boundary line here.
Yeah.
To come closer to Hill. Those are some of the little changes.
Oh, so it picks up 7A picks up Virginia Avenue into the pink.
Yeah, correct. Is that?
Which is the up right there, that you're at Virginia Avenue, right? That one road. Yep.
Right, up Simmons, and then you turn right on Virginia there, right,
By Lady of Loretto, backside of Lady of Loretto.
right.
And over to the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Founders Park or whatever they call it, Pioneer Park.
What was the thinking in including that area just north of Nevada Boulevard?
I can't speak to that. That comes from Mr. Griggy's comments. We originally had 7, not quite exactly what his thinking was, and so this is his intent with 7A is what he wanted it to look like.
I think it moves the boundary up to the creek instead of the road.
Well, and also, too, I think his intention was to avoid having a split going down Sutro. He's trying to include the other side of Sutro into District Blue. What is that, 4?
Sutro. Oh, Sutro.
If I remember correctly.
Well, that doesn't change.
I don't remember the Sutro difference. I remember
Yeah.
the Simmons. How about Simmons as it's?
Sorry.
Yeah, Simmons to the west.
When he spoke, I had some notes here. He liked map 7. That was Zach's. When he spoke here on the speakerphone, map 7 was his.
And you're
I
no
like
longer
map
going
7
north of
with the
Virginia,
exception
but
of-
you're
I would
picking up
prefer to see that down, pulled that pink area, pulled
Hill
down to
Road
Nevada
by
Boulevard.
Union Bay.
Scenario
So then that would be 7, because 7 pulls it down.
Yeah, I mean, really, actually, I apologize. I was looking at the wrong one. Because I took notes on all this. So 7A, the fundamental difference is that the green section, which is District 2, where Trustee Millerick lives, is it comes in and takes in that area north of Virginia. In exchange, the purple area, where Trustee Gasson lives, is losing that, of course, but is all picking up the area south of Hill Road
Right.
and east of Indian Valley Road.
Right, it's those two little,
And, I would really defer to Trustee Miller and Trustee Gasson what they think, because those are their neighborhoods, they know them best. Which ones are more representative of your sphere of influence, if you will?
So I have been looking at the maps. I had but what I just noticed, because I was leaning towards 7, but to your point, on 7, okay, that one, there's that little piece, that little triangle from Indian Valley Road towards Rancho, the little.
Right, south of Hill.
That piece, I think that's all apartment housing and stuff. That seems like,
Actually,
Isn't
no,
those-
it's on the other side of Hill Road, is the apartments. Those are.
That's what
gonna
I'm
be-
saying, that's this piece right here. I think this on Indian Valley Hill, all right there, isn't that where the apartments are?
The apartments are north of Hill Road.
Oh, they're up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So south of Hill Road, that's gonna be single-family, kind of larger lots. It's fairly consistent with Indian Valley.
Right, I just, on the other side, I don't see that on the other side when I'm driving, so
Okay.
that was why.
I think having Virginia Avenue stay with the rest of the, you know, to the, what is it, east of Simmons, to stay in District 2, I think was the right way to go.
District 2's were in my house.
Yeah, right.
I have friends down Virginia. I'm familiar with the area. It's not.
But I think it should all stay together instead of dividing, like on 7A, it takes a portion of Virginia, it takes Virginia and South and moves it into District 5.
And that's an actual boundary as well.
The road, Nevada Boulevard, yeah. I'm kind of like, I think
Well,
we keep.
see, the road isn't the natural boundary. The creek is the
Well,
natural
yeah.
boundary.
Yeah,
The-
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, when you see the map, you see the roads and you draw the lines on the roads, but the roads are really the middle of the valley. It's the ridge lines. So to me, Virginia plus or minus is a good conversation, but I want to look at map 4B and look up at Partridge Knolls way up by next to my house.
Okay.
Where in both of these 7 and 7A, that Partridge Knolls 1 bulges over towards where my house is, where on 4B it doesn't. And so that's sort of a, I mean.
Yeah, I don't understand.
If you see where the star is with my name on it?
Yeah.
And you go directly west of it on each of these, in one case, in 4B, Simmons Lane is the barrier.
Yeah, and it kind of
But
goes
in-
straight up.
But in Simmons, on the other two, there's areas to the right of Simmons Lane. Yeah, picks up Partridge Knolls 1. So that's kind of like Virginia. It's kind of a funny little neighborhood that kind of is independent. And
Well, the question, I guess, becomes, is that a San Marin quote-unquote neighborhood, or is it a, whatever we call District 2, kind of, you know, black?
well, we had big arguments about where Cindy Clinton used to live. Good night. Next to where I live. And the arguments were, do our kids go to San Ramon or Olive? And the argument was they ended up in San Ramon because they had all started there already. And so our homes look more like the homes are in San Marin as opposed to the homes in Olive, and we ended up in that neighborhood. So I'm not sure which of those arguments is right. There's just as much historical as they are.
So if I know where Sylvia Berry lives she goes
in there, yeah.
she goes right off of Simmons Lane up in that neighborhood, and she's in the San Marin. Yeah, so I would.
SMIA, that's true, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
she was in SMIA.
And
yeah.
she's Partridge Knolls 1.
Right, Partridge Knolls 1, I think, is SMIA. Partridge Knolls 2 is not, I believe.
Well, I would suggest then that, you know, for that reason alone, 7 might be favorable in 4B, in my opinion.
I'm trying to just sort of, I'll highlight what I see here, and it's, I don't own those homes, I don't have any rights to them, it's, you know, it's just.
The other thing with 4B is that Trustee Area 3 has Hill Education Center, and having more of a elementary or a a middle school, that just has not just, but Hill Education is represented in there. I think that was one of the discussion points as well that Zach had pointed out. Or no, Alan did. Alan Harris pointed that out. Each district should have an active school in the area where parents, and with Hill Education, it's hard for them to establish an active parent, and that was his point. So I just want to, valid point. I think we all kind of went, oh yeah, that's something to consider. Okay, Trustee Aguila had a comment.
I just wanted to, before we lose our next student trustee, just wanted to remind that you're welcome to give your input on these maps, and so where do you live, and you could give your input to us.
So are we speaking on regard of, so what is?
Can you turn your microphone on?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So I was a little bit curious around the overall goal of these
If I do that,
maps.
you gotta
Is it to basically divide each neighborhood into areas of focus between each trustee? What is the main goal of this? Because I've been noticing the maps kind of vary from my personal view of Novato, but I want to hear the main.
We said, don't consider where we live. Don't worry about where we live as trustees, because there'll be other trustees in these positions. It's more of keeping neighborhoods together.
Oh, I see. Okay. So one thing that I definitely did notice is that kind of on map 4B is that I was kind of interested to see that the blue area wasn't moved right a little bit further. And why I say this is because for me, I feel like the entire neighborhood down until Simmons, like he was saying, and even after that, there's this one slight area of hill that has all these homes, and most of the time their children end up going to elementary schools like San Ramon and high schools like San Marin. So I feel like that blue area should be expanded a little bit more, in my personal opinion, because I feel like the neighborhoods that are a little bit beyond Simmons Lane are definitely a part of that area in Novato. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, I didn't see the other maps, but let's see. Oh, so this is number 7.
Behind you.
Behind
you.
Lovely, thank you.
Here's 7 if you want to look at it.
And so, oh, lovely. And so that area right there, a little bit. to
You
the
can get
right-
up and point.
Oh, awesome. So this area right here, is this where generally like Fireman's Fund is?
Yeah, see where the red star says my name?
Yeah.
Directly down from that is Fireman's Fund.
Oh,
I mean, between the road and that star,
Yeah.
if I look out my back window, I look over the top of the Fireman's Fund building.
All right. So I do feel like scenario 7 is definitely more logical to me than scenario 4B. So yeah, thank you for clearing that up for me.
Okay, thank you.
So
All right, yes.
So the dilemma with wrapping stuff around a high school or any school is there are 7 trustees in this board, and if you make sure one trustee well represents the school and you wrap it around the school, 6 other trustees better represent the other school, and so you've changed the balance of the political decision. So the best thing that could happen for San Marin is a little bit that you divide the area by 7 and every trustee has some interest in because they have some cousin or neighbor that goes to San Marin. Same with Novato. So you're trying to create a political body that makes decisions, and if you wrap it around one, you've made a 6-to-1 board. So there's a disadvantage to the model you propose, although it sounds plausible.
Yeah.
It has some structural disadvantage in the decision-making process.
Exactly.
So, but there's no right answer here. There is no right answer.
It's all down to the representation when it comes down to it. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole board agrees, we wish we weren't going through this process. We like the at-large model where every one of us has an interest in every campus, but
Right.
the law doesn't allow us to make that choice. So,
Another point to make about 4B versus 7, so we kind of already discussed how it pulls in Partridge Knowles 1. Love it or leave it, or
Number
not.
7 does, right?
Yeah, 7 does that
Right.
versus 4B. But as well, when you go to 7 from 4B, you see that, and this is what I was talking about earlier, that Sutro is no longer a dividing line. The area east of Sutro is now included in District 4.
Yep.
And as a result,
The area
District
east of
5,
Sutro.
purple, where Trustee Gasson lives, kind of squeezes up above Novato Boulevard
Right.
to include Park Haven, which is, that's another kind of weird one. And I think 7B actually is the one that.
7A or 7? We're not.
Oh, 7A, sorry.
There's no 7B.
Nope, they
Whoa.
both do it.
7B.
Sorry. I always want to call it 7B, but yeah, sorry. Actually, no, the both of them do it. I apologize. So 7 and 7A do the same thing. So regardless, both 7s include
Right.
Park Haven in
Which I like in
District
5.
5.
verse 4. I like it in 5 myself.
Okay.
I like to get to Park Haven, you
Yeah.
drive off of Nevada Boulevard.
Right.
You can't get there from the other side.
Right.
There's a ridge of mountains in the way.
Right.
You can walk through, but you can't drive through.
And a
So to
creek.
me, Park Haven better goes in the pink, whatever color that is.
Purple.
Sure, whatever you want to call it. That makes
I
sense
like
to me.
7. I
So
think we
that's,
should
those
land
are
on
both 7 and 7A. What I don't like about them is I think Partridge Knolls 1 ends up being just looking weird up there. But that's, so if we could shave Partridge Knolls 1 off like it's in 4B.
Then go up to Simmons Lane, that.
Given, it's a
And then
shame that
give
we
up
don't know,
Virginia.
but if,
We can only have one
Yeah.
conversation.
Did you? are
I'm
you
done. I mean, it's nothing.
It's not going to be
a-
perfect.
Yeah, it's not perfect. That's where I am.
Trustee Gasson.
my only thought is that if the San Marino Association is not in an area, I mean, I know that we need to, but having a little chunk of it not being included would be a concern for me.
Would that be better or worse?
I think if you've only got a little neighborhood, if
What are you
that's,
talking, which area are you talking?
that little Partridge Knolls that he's referring to, which I'm not as where I'm, the little chunk, and I understand that if they're a community, they're similar, but I would wonder if people that were in that area, if there's just one, like, I don't know where the San Marino Associates covers, but I was surprised to learn that it extended to there. And so my thought is that if you just take a few homes away from that pool of this area that we've actually carved out for the San Marin location, that it might be a little bit awkward.
But I don't see the value in matching SMIA
Yeah.
to one trustee.
Me neither.
I think that's actually a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think having SMIA
I
be
think so,
represented by
too.
2 trustees, and having a legitimate reason to meet with them is a far better result for San Ramon High School and the San Ramon Elementary School. I think this school's better off with multiple representatives.
Well, I
That's- yeah.
agree in concept, but I'm saying, again, I don't know where the boundaries are, but if we're talking like, 80 homes where there's 10 voters or something, I mean, it just seems like such a small little neighborhood that, given what I know about that, it just would make them disjointed from, especially, well, I don't know. I normally I've been more global about making sure that we cover as many areas, because I don't want people to just focus on one school in the future. But if it's just one small little neighborhood, think about when you're at a community meeting. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. If this is a community and they have these meetings, I have to think my through. Yeah, I don't know.
And 2 trustees show instead of 1, isn't that better?
So one of the things we need to remember is we don't get to do this necessarily neighborhood by neighborhood or street by street. We have to do it by census block by census block. So we'd have to move that whole census block
Or
in,
not.
which then, changes the numbers, which means then we need to make a change somewhere else to adjust for that number.
Right.
So
Isn't it already on, isn't that piece you just showed me? It's already in that map. I'm just talking about that one piece that he was asking about, that little,
So do you
right
like
there.
that or you don't like that?
I don't know. I just think as a community, if it depends on where we're going. As a community, if that's the only little piece that doesn't belong to the San Marin Association, I understand that it's nice to have 2 people, but you could also say that whoever is, if it goes into the green, then they're not going to really, I mean, it's 10, 20 people, whatever, however many voters. And it just seems like a hanging thing that if that's part of the association, if it was a bigger area, I get the point that you'd have then 2 trustees representing you. But it was just an observation that I know Sylvia lives there. She's on that group, and that's a pocket that does belong to that community. And if that's what we've been focusing on as communities, then it would seem that we should pick that up.
Okay. Trustee Aguila, sorry.
So President Butler, I'm wondering if, we want to eliminate for tonight's purpose, we want to eliminate another map and maybe,
Okay.
as far as time goes, I mean, no, so I don't know if that's the next step.
I would like us to actually get to one map so we can move forward on November
least-
5th to vote on a map.
Or at least two.
That's my goal.
Yeah, 2 maps. So we've done.
I'm there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it?
Actually, I'm there with an amendment with one change,
But then we don't know what that,
I ended up waiting to
yeah.
be called one.
Trustee Nell, go ahead, Trustee Nell, and then Trustee Mack.
I like A, and there's very, very little that I would, 7A, there's very, very little I would change, except for, I think that little piece of Simmons Lane does belong, cut the way it is cut in 4B. So I want to, if we take that little blob of trustee area 4, that is, east of Simmons Lane, I guess, and put it in the green, which is area 2. I want to know how that affects the blocks, or what will that, is that, if doing that causes mayhem, then I don't want to do it. But if we can do that without creating mayhem, I think 7A is the best one. There was some talk about Virginia Avenue. I think that's all correct, based on how you get to those streets, et cetera. So I really, I mean, in some ways, the 7A is really good, but so I'm there. I'm down to 1 with 1 adjustment if it doesn't cause too much
I'm
trouble.
unclear. Are you unclear, Larry? Yeah.
We just go to A.
I'm
so
looking
make
at
sure
7A.
we're-
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so the only change you would make to 7A would be to move this area into the green area, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
East of, yeah.
Just use Simmons Lane.
Not the whole thing. I mean, we're talking about literally everything, Simmons Lane and everything to the east of it.
Why
Should
not?
be in the green area.
Again, I don't know how many people are in what this census block would be, because that's really what the difference is between
Okay.
4B and 7A up and 7 up there. But keep in mind that 4 looks different in the other scenario where it comes down and takes in this neighborhood to kind of balance out the population. This is on the small side already, so I just don't know if we're going to take
Which
out
one's on the
people.
small side?
Area 4.
The blue?
The blue area is on the smaller side, so we're going to take out population. I don't know for sure whether or not we're going to have to add back in population somewhere else in order to keep within our 10% balance. That would be the thing I'd have to go back and double check, but I'm hearing that.
So don't do it. I mean, that's literally,
Yeah.
if we do this, what happens? And if it can't be done, then I'm a 7A supporter.
Trustee Mack.
2 things. First off, I'd like to make a proposal that we not introduce any new scenarios,
Yes. Thank you.
but I might get outvoted. That's okay. But I'm just putting that out there. 4B, and I'm not going to say either. I can go with any of the 3. I want to hear what everybody else says because I'm not impacted as much up there. But 4B, and I almost want to pose this to Trustee Gasson, that basically 4B versus either of the 7s, really. Interesting in that it loses Partridge Knolls 1, 4B does, but it also tightens the District 5 down to south of Center Road. So there is no including Park Haven. It's a more of a uniform area. But the downside is it does run a line right down Sutra, one side versus the other. You're either 4 or you're 5 in 4B. So, I could go either way. I feel like I should defer to you and see what you think, if you have any strong opinions either way. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, Trustee Aguilar.
I like 7 or 7A, and I don't know if we can eliminate 4B if anybody else wants to talk about 4B, but at least we eliminate 1.
Yeah.
I'm good with eliminating 4B.
So I like my argument. I'm not sure I like 4B exactly, but my argument is the more trustees that are close by each school, and I don't mean trustees, I mean trustee areas, because I'm taking away who lives where right now. The closer the boundaries are in proximity to the campuses, particularly the 2 high schools, first and the middle school second, the better off those campuses are, because when they call a meeting that has an interest around a particular campus, they can call on trustees who represent families who have kids going to that school, which is my argument for 4B. And I mean, but like Trustee Nell says, we're getting out of the point where we got to make a decision, and and my view is we make a decision tonight and then finalize it.
Yeah.
I make it tonight, and then unless some horrible thing happens, we make it final next week or next time we meet.
I just think as we get into the nitty gritty of it, we start making these little adjustments, and it's going to wreak havoc with another area. I think we've narrowed it so much that we're not going to be completely perfect on moving a particular area. I think with 7A and 7B, it looks like the Partridge Knolls area is included in there, and I think that is in SMIA. Now that I look at a Google map, it's got to be.
I think it is too. I think Partridge Knoll
This little nut, that little blue nub up there, that above.
I believe it is in Partridge.
Yeah.
It is in SMIA,
I'm
and I
pretty
believe
sure.
Partridge Knoll's tool is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're down to 7A and 7B.
But we're not taking her out of the SMIA. She's still a member. She just gets
Yeah.
two trustees that represent her population.
So 7 and 7A have that same. Area 4 is the same.
Yeah. So
I think so.
if that's where 6 of us are, then I don't have hysterical.
You're not
or
gonna.
5 of us or.
Trustee Nell.
So, point of order, the process is, is there consensus that we have to pick one of these 3 versions, or we can't pick something that's
Another new map?
Well, yeah, I mean, we would pick one and make 1 or 2 little changes, and that would be the choice. Is that off the table, gang?
I guess if there's consensus that we want to make another map, we could, but
because.
We have to publicize it for 7 days. So 7 days prior to November 5th meeting.
So that would be
We could.
the consequences of us not selecting one of these is extending the process for another period of.
We need to make a decision on November 5th.
By November 5th.
Yeah. Am I correct? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Do you want to is your proposals back on the table of what you suggested? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I guess I'm coming back around trying to trust but verify that it's really, really hard to do that.
Okay.
Because I want to get it right, and sometimes doing things, but there is an upcoming deadline, so it sounds like there's wisdom in approving one of these 3 maps. So though none will ever be perfect, in this particular trustee's opinion, I will then say, if we're deciding it's 7A.
Okay.
So you're gonna I was gonna put 7 above 7A, but let me look at it one more time. Yeah.
So just to make it, because one of the things I keep thinking is we're spending so much time, and we're down to, for me, it's whatever everybody wants is fine with me.
That's what I
But
meant.
I will throw in my question, and I don't know if you can answer this. I know we have the census coming up, and we don't have a lot of growth in Novato, a lot of developments or anything. But we're going to have to look at this again once we get the census back anyway, right?
Right.
And how much time do we have after that if we have to? Oh, bye. Thank you.
Bye. See ya.
How much time do we have after the results from the census to affect a change if we have to?
So you will get the census data in about April of 2021, and you will have until about March of 2022 to make any changes. So you'll have lots of months to agonize over new lines and decisions.
Fall of 2021.
Well, I don't think it's going to be significant, but just for perspective that we're going to have to be so I don't.
Elections at that point too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can bring back 7 and 7A and then decide a final on.
Let's see if we can pick between the 2. I don't see the difference between
Okay,
7 and
I just wanna
7A
make sure.
up in my neighborhood. So could somebody explain the difference?
So between 7 and 7A is that Virginia,
And
that little
yeah,
pink
okay.
area.
Okay, so that changed, but what else changed to balance it out? That's the other.
It's in the hill, it's in 3.
So if you look at
5 and 3, right?
Yes, if you look at 7 here,
I see that change. Where's the
This change.
counterbalancing change?
and the other changes there, I don't believe
There
there's
isn't.
counterbalancing changes. These are really
I went
small.
through this, and yeah, it's weird.
It's
In
really-
7A, there's District 2 loses the block north of Virginia and gains nothing.
Okay,
And then
okay,
District
that's
3
okay.
loses nothing, but gains the small area south of Hill Road and east of Indian Valley.
Yeah.
Why I don't like it.
Hold on.
I mean, that's it to 7A. That's really it. It's just 2 little tweaks.
But Virginia doesn't belong in 2.
Well, then what about what?
This neighborhood clearly.
But even, like, if you went all the way up Simmons, you could say the same thing, though. You
Yeah.
could say that all the way up Simmons doesn't belong in 2 then, if you're
That's
gonna
right.
say that Virginia doesn't belong in 2.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. But you guys didn't want, you didn't want to come up with a 7C, so that's what I said. So I'm consistent.
You know what, I didn't pick, we asked you to, you didn't clarify. Okay. So you wanted a new map that goes all the way up Simmons for that one area to be in 5? Or,
Well, I want Virginia in 5.
Yeah.
okay, so you like,
Like
But
7A.
Once you go north of that,
Or-
yeah, I would keep Simmons Lane and everything east of it in 2,
Mhm.
but that was gonna create, process.
A new map.
He says the blue one's getting too little already.
Yeah,
He said.
we'd have to
So-
just take a look at it and see.
So then it was just comparing 7 to 7A, and I didn't see a reason to put Virginia Avenue in area 2, because you can't get to Virginia Avenue from area 2, you gotta go to, area 5 to get to it.
yes, trustee Cooper.
So these 7 and 7A are so close.
Right.
Yeah, they are.
I guess my preference would be 7A because it pulls just for the reasons we talked about on Virginia. So that would be my preference. Other than that, either one is really fine, but I would choose 7A.
Okay,
I'll go 7A.
all right.
I mean, I want to get this done tonight and.
Me too.
I'm in
I
the
mean,
same
the-
boat. I will do whatever you
Okay.
prefer. Are you 7A?
Yeah, I would say,
Things change.
but with also bringing Virginia on 5, and the Simmons, from 4B, so, the map on 4B.
So now you're asking for another map?
No.
No.
It's just, I like,
You're expressing
I'm
what
at
you like.
7A.
Got it, okay.
but then we also talked about those few little changes, so, that would be my ideal map.
So that's proposing another map, though. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, you can't.
You're suggesting another map.
It's one of
I'm not going
these.
for another map either.
I'm okay with
We'll get this
7A.
done.
I prefer 7A than 7.
Where is he? Is he even around?
Who's Zach?
Zach?
No, he's
He's
in Irvine.
He's in week, let's see, no. Diane, are you good with yeah, okay. All right,
I do.
we care, it's just that we're at a point where, yeah.
They're all fine for me.
Okay, so I think we're gonna move forward with the direction of bringing back 7A.
It's gonna go for 2 years. We're gonna have a new census. We might,
Yep.
So now the other-
rediscuss 5 versus 6, 7 trustees. Who the hell knows?
The other part of the conversation in your packet were the sequence is options. Were we able to look, is everybody able to look at that?
Oh.
No.
So the only thing I thought is we have to force the election in the South, so every trustee who's sitting on this position doesn't get forced out and then have to rerun 2 years later. So I think you want to do it in an order that forces.
That's
those-
option 3.
Was
Yeah,
that
that's option
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, because the rest, I didn't see any other place where that disadvantaged anybody at this table. So I would choose.
And that doesn't change anybody, right? So.
But that
Debbie-
makes it so trustee Nell and trustee Aguila, if they want to continue on in their, they have to run.
Right.
And if either one of them doesn't win that election next year, they stay on and complete their
Still
term.
at large.
Still at large.
Yes.
Okay.
The 3 of us running against each other.
Right.
So which,
Or
which.
you just, no matter what, you would stay on and you don't lose your 4-year
Well,
term.
So I'm trying to
Would-
figure out, so I'm running in, all of them
Page-
have me running in 2 years,
Page
right?
13 is of the presentation.
Page, Thank you.
And Larry and Chris, please chime in.
Yes.
Just to be clear, Diane's 5 and 2022, areas 4 and 6 would be open.
Would be open, right.
Got it. So there's plenty of time for people to, move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Make sure to mention it to your wife.
You heard of the cost of living is in this town? You
Yeah.
can't afford to move.
All right, do we have
That doesn't help.
consensus? Do we have consensus from the board that we like option 3 as our election years and that what the outcome of that
I'm
means
trying to make sure I understand 3 before I agree.
trustee area 7 trustees?
Pardon me, I'm trying to make sure I understand what that option means before.
Thank you for providing this too, Larry.
7, 10, 11, 13. And so if I live in area 2,
So one is
in every
me,
case, I'm up in 20.
areas 2, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the least disruptive
Yeah.
cycling.
Yeah, that's,
Except for the 3 of us who
yeah.
are sacrificing for our community.
That's it. And we respect you.
I want a
Right,
I will give you a plaque.
Okay, so I think there's consensus to move forward with option 3 as our election cycle. And so scenario 7A. Yes. Are we good?
I think we're good. Yeah.
So coming back will be 2 resolutions for November 5th. Once we approve everything, then the school district reorganization committee meets to approve that we did this process appropriately. And then it will go on the consent agenda at the state board. And they will approve our trustee areas and everything that we did. Okay?
And that would most likely be in December.
In December, yeah.
They would approve it.
They would approve it. It's on consent. We could go speak.
Or January.
Pull an item from consent. Okay, so that, we're going to move on to the next item. Thank you, board members. Thank you. All right, moving on to 14A. This is bringing back. Yeah, we just, no, I don't think I just, we can, if we want to make it an action, we can do that. I just said we narrowed it down and there's consensus and the action will happen on the 5th. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. Moving on to 14A, here comes Yancy Hawkins. This is a second reading of Board Policy 7310. This is naming of a facility.
Thank you, President Butler, trustees. So this is the second reading. There has been no changes since the first reading, with the exception of a schedule of the named buildings or portions of buildings within the district. We did our best to get all of that. I don't know if there might be a bench somewhere that we didn't get, but this is a vast majority of them. And so this is brought back for your consideration to move forward. And so with that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Trustee Nell, then Trustee Cooper.
Just asking for clarity, but when I read this, it's the same steps or procedures whether we are naming something for the first time or renaming something that already has a name. Are the process is all the same?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Of the.
So I'm okay with that, but there has been some discussion about the defense of things that are already named. Should we give ourselves one more step, or I'm advocating on behalf of constituents at this point, but does the board think it's fair to treat something that already has the name the same way we're treating something that doesn't have a name? That's my question to you, fellow trustees.
I would say if there's an expiration date, I'm sorry, did I
No,
jump
go
in?
ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, because it's part of the policy, these names have potential expiration dates to be revisited, right? If I recall right. So,
We can establish.
right, so if they have that, I think that's when I would agree that they be brought back as if they're brand new.
So the worksheet that gave us the things that were named and not named, could we add a column that says expiration date?
We can, but at this point, I don't have any information on an expiration date.
Should
My
we-
recommendation would be that the board put a expiration date on all naming of facilities within the
So-
district.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be an expiration date. It could be a renewal date. It's a reconsideration date. So it could be that the Amy Carter building is the Amy Carter building from 2019 to 2029. And then when we get to 2029, we're like, oh man, Amy Carter, she deserves another 10 years. Or we should decide, you know what, it's time to move on to the Katie Cobb von Heusen building. So it could be a renewal or an expiration date. Consideration.
Better than just calling it.
Yeah.
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 Trustee Cooper did you have additional comment?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, and then Trustee Cooper.
So 2 questions. What are we going to do with the existing names? Are we going to revisit them and go through this process for each one, or TBD? Are we just going to grandfather them all in? Question number 1. Question number 2, what do we do about the former facilities that are in here? So the former grass field at Novato High for soccer, are we going to pass that name on to the turf soccer field at Novato High, Tibby Bango, and the student center, the Emily Gates Center at San Marin? I'm putting that out there for all of us.
Right.
So
go ahead.
This policy does not entertain the changing of, this would not change any board-approved name for a facility. It would be staff's recommendation that after we pass this, that we go through a consideration and put a reconsideration date or whatever you want to call that on all of our facilities, and we could bring that as a separate item. But the process in the board policy would not necessarily force this board to do that at this point.
So I would agree it makes sense. It'd be a good exercise for us to go through and set a baseline for all of the existing names, not with the intent of changing, but of just kind of folding them into the new process.
I would just grandfather them all in.
Yeah, you grandfather them in, and maybe there's a reconsideration date, maybe there never is, who knows? But then the second question, the former facilities, do they, like for instance, the student center at San Marin, does that name carry directly over to the new PAC at San Marin? And then the soccer field at Novato, does that carry over as well? And I'm kind of asking all of us to think about that, or if you have a recommendation.
My thought is that it should be considered at this point, a new facility, a new building, and if the board chooses to give the same name, then that's the board's decision. But I think that should be a decision point, because I do believe both of these are new facilities, and they are. It's not a renovation. These are completely. Both of those facilities have completely demoed or are completely new facilities.
So if I
think
understand correctly, the grandfathering concept we're talking about would be for everything but those 2. And those 2 would be subject to just a brand new process.
Those would be new. That would be
That's a
my
point,
recommendation.
Right. If
I'm
the
just trying to
building
make
has
that
been
clear.
torn down,
Yeah,
we
right.
reconsider.
Okay. It's not like we're saying no, it's just that
Yeah.
they need to be brought forward
Right.
in the context of the new facility.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Brand new.
So under the
Right. Right. Trustee Cooper, I got to get to Trustee Cooper and then Trustee Miller.
So kind of a comment question under naming rights on page 2, item 2. Just a concern I have about whether or not the board shall retain the power to approve any proposed name. I would prefer to see that not being an option. I would always like the board to have that choice. So it says, state the roles and responsibilities of the parties to the agreement, including whether or not the board shall retain the power to approve. I would prefer to have the board shall retain the power.
So everything goes through us.
Everything.
I hear it. Yeah, because otherwise my
Nancy, when we talk about,
Yeah.
when we get into that naming rights section,
Yes.
what are we getting at in that?
So we're really getting at the fact of it's becoming more and more common for public agencies to sell the naming rights to outside agencies, outside companies for money.
So it'd be a revenue generator for the district.
Yep.
The question is whether or whether not. So.
If it
is
comes
that-
before
I
the
don't-
board.
Trustee Cooper, wasn't that your?
It comes to the board for approval. I would like it.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. Agree.
I tend to, yeah, so unless staff or whoever, CSBA, whoever wrote that can justify it, I don't understand why we wouldn't be the shall.
It is. If you note in the above, it says, in doing so, the board shall enter into a written agreement. So it would have to come to the board for approval.
Yeah.
Any
So,
agreement.
Yeah, so what it's saying is, if the board enters into an agreement to give somebody else the right to name the building, the other person has the right to name the building.
But it's per the board's approval.
But it's
So-
based on an agreement that you sign. So you're gonna work with, the Coca-Cola, and it's gonna be the Coca-Cola Auditorium, and in your agreement, you're gonna say what do you guys want the name of the building to be? And they're gonna say, we want the name to be the Coca-Cola Auditorium. And so you're gonna sign an agreement that says, okay, the name of the building is the Coca-Cola Auditorium.
So it's not whether or not. So I agree with Trustee Cooper.
So this is.
I don't like that.
You do or don't? You do not like what part of that?
So if I understood you correctly, we're going to negotiate an agreement without the ability to approve the name. So it could just be that we're saying the same thing, but it's not written in a way that I understand that to be the case. So somebody else can ask that question, but go ahead.
Trustee Miller, you were next, and then Trustee Gasson.
So the reason you pay a lot of money for attorneys is they write clear language that everybody can understand. And I'm glad we didn't pay the attorney who wrote this because it is confusing as can be.
Well, you all did.
Oh,
with your
damn.
CSBA
Our
dues,
CSBA
because this
dues,
is
yeah.
coming from your professional organization.
Okay, well, they, in my mind, failed because this just wraps the whole thing around the axle and creates confusion. So I like clear language, so I would like us to clarify the language. That's not the first time I've criticized CSBA attorneys, you might note. The second thing is, if Doyle Drive can be thrown away and turned into Park Presidio Drive and not recognize the contribution of people who of that caliber who have basically delivered the Golden Gate Bridge to the entire North Coast, 7 counties. I think the issue of being able to earn revenue on our naming opportunities in today's economy is more important than long-term forever recognition of the schools, Lou Sutton School, who I don't even know Lou Sutton. I would love it to always be Lou Sutton. But if somebody said it wanted to be Lou Sutton or do you want $10,000, I'll take the $10,000. We need the money. So I would like us to put into this an expire language. And I don't care if it's every 20 years, if the ones that are in there get grandfathered in for 20 years. I have nothing against anybody who has their name on a facility now, but some future board is going to be looking for money, and I want to give them all the tools I possibly can to allow that to happen. So,
And under, if you look at the bottom of the first page,
Yes, sir.
it notes in red, when naming or renaming a district, school, building, or facility, the board shall specify the duration for which the name shall be in effect. So that means for all future, and my recommendation would be to all current, that we do put a reconsideration date or an expiration date or whatever you want to call it on all of those. And then this board or the next board can make that decision of what they want to do.
But that would not be stated in here, because we want it.
well, it could be if we asked them to.
Where would that be stated? Where would you, is that in the agreement that we draw up with the name?
I would like to encourage future boards to not grant more than 20 years. If we're not going to be there here,
Yeah.
well, maybe Debbie, you'll be here 20 years from now, but I won't be here.
So you would actually like to put the years in here?
No more than, or something.
Okay.
I want to, the legacy here is, we have Lou Sutton School and the San Jose School and the, roads get named stuff. We have, I would like to give the future board the written encouragement to think about this, as opposed to now they have to have the political fight there that we're gonna have right now, which is, Lou Sutton was my great aunt, and what are you doing? You're dishonoring her. Let me show you where her grave is in Founders Park. So
I'd like to give an extreme example. So the Yancey Hawkins Family Fund decides that they're going to contribute $100 million to the school district if they allow us to change the name of Lou Sutton School to Yancey Hawkins Elementary School. But it has to be in perpetuity for us to receive that $100 million.
And I'm trying to reserve choices in the future. So
Yeah,
that's,
no, so
that's
I
a
know
choice
it's
in the
I know
future.
it's an
Yeah.
extreme example. And I could
Have you thought about marrying Lou? In perpetuity?
Yeah.
She's she doesn't talk much.
So it sounds like the trustees would be more comfortable with, under the naming rights, with number 2, to change the language from state the roles and responsibilities of the parties to the agreement, including whether or not the board shall retain the power to approve any proposed name. You could just change it to, that's what it says now, state the roles and responsibilities of the parties to the agreement.
Period.
The board shall retain.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's have-
So state the roles and responsibilities of the parties to the agreement, period. The board shall retain the power to approve any proposed name.
Okay.
And that corrects that concern of the board, I believe.
I think so.
Trustee Gasson?
It might be a moot point. I see it in a different way from reading legal stuff. And so I was just going to make a point of clarification on it, but if everybody else wants that out.
Go ahead.
Make your point, please.
So the statement starts, the naming right starts with, the board may grant to any person or entity the right to name any district building or facility. In doing so, the board shall enter a written agreement which shall, and then it has the elements for which that agreement can cover. It doesn't mean you have to do it. We can always but it leaves the opportunity. It doesn't bind you to not being able to retain the part. So I think that there's probably some reason that it was brought in here, but I don't think by having it this way restricts the ability for us to just say, no, we have the right to power to, or retain the power to approve. So it was just an observation that it's just an element within that agreement that these numbers are following, not that we're required to follow every component of it.
Okay. Trustee, did you have a comment? Trustee Aguila?
Yeah. So, again, for clarity, on the first page, the introduction paragraph, I still, after reading it and after the discussion tonight, I would like to have it say, the governing board shall name new, get rid of district schools and add new and existing school facilities. And then keep everything the same. That way it's a little more clear and it shows what the notes includes. Said this last time too, but I'm still wanting to bring it up again just to review. So it would be the governing board shall name new and existing school facilities and other districts owned or leased buildings, grounds, and facilities in recognition of.
Board members who like that? She's proposing that language change. Trustee Aguila.
Listening to it, I like what Chris said, but.
This is just the first opening sentence on page 1.
Well, and it sounds, the way you read it, it sounds like it mandates us to name them. We get to
It's the
choose.
first, it already says shall. She's just changing from district schools. The governing board shall name district schools. She's changing that to newer, she's changing it, the governing board shall name new and existing district facilities.
School facilities, I think she wants.
I don't see the value. Fine.
It's, sure, it adds to the specificity.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
A second?
Hold on, we
Let
need to
me
know what the
read my-
motion
Write my
is.
notes. Or,
Sorry.
I'd like to move approval of this item 14A with the following changes. On page 1, the opening paragraph shall read, the governing board shall, or I'd like to insert the words new or existing before district, schools.
So just to be clear, would it read, the governing board shall name new and existing school facilities and other district-owned or leased buildings,
Yes,
grounds, and facilities in
that's- yes.
recognition of? Okay.
In addition to that, I'd like to change, or I'm proposing making the change to, on page 2, item number 2, that would start, state the roles and responsibilities of the parties to the agreement, period. Delete the words including whether or not, all 4 of those. Beginning the next sentence, the board shall retain the power to approve any proposed name. Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a first.
When are we, how are we going to develop the update of the current, it seemed, we had a lot of conversation about renewal dates.
The existing names of facilities, that
That-
conversation, that's a.
It's like a future staff
separate-
report, or?
To me, that would be a separate item
Yeah.
that we would bring back, and if the board wants to direct me to bring back a proposed reconsideration date for, or staff to bring back a reconsideration date for all currently named facilities, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
And a recommendation on facilities that were torn down. What
Okay.
you want, what you would like to do with that. Named facilities that were were torn down. Okay, thank you, trustee Nell. So we have a first by trustee Cooper. Need a second? Oh, trustee Aguila was a second. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. 15A, or, no, we're at CSEA, excuse me, and Jonathan will come up. This is approval of NUSD's initial proposal to reopen contract negotiations with CSEA for 1920.
Thank you, President Butler. Good evening, trustees. Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. At the last board meeting, Yancey Hawkins, Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations, presented to you on my behalf the recommendation for approval of CSEA reopeners for negotiations. The board approved the recommendation authorizing Articles 3, salary, 4 hours and overtime, 5, employee benefits, 12, evaluation, and Article 20, duration and reopeners, to be opened for negotiations. This evening, I recommend to you for approval the district's reopeners for negotiations. Also, Article 4, hours and overtime, Article 8, absence from duty, and Article 13, transfer. With your approval this evening of the district's reopeners, it is the intent of the district to initiate the formal negotiations process with CSEA. The district is hopeful to have a respectful and productive negotiations process with CSEA that is rooted in improved outcomes for our students through the support of our classified employees and the effectiveness of the district. I am able to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Questions? All right. All right. First by Trustee Millerick, a second by Trustee Mack. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, our final item this evening is a staff report. NUSD Crisis Response Team.
Good evening, trustees. The month of October is full of a lot of different safety events for the Novato Unified School District. We just had the Safe Walk to School event. We have the Great Shakeout event where our students practice earthquake drills coming up this week. And next week is Student Safety Week. So in light of all these events, we wanted to take a moment to make sure that we communicated with you some of the crisis response teams that exist within Novato Unified School District. The first one that we're really proud of is the Student Threat Assessment Team. This came online last year. We invested in a lot of training and resources to make sure that we had very clear protocols when a threat takes place on one of our campuses. The primary purpose of the Threat Assessment Team is really to prevent targeted violence. The Threat Assessment Team does not determine whether a threat was made. Rather, they determine the severity of the threat and what actions are appropriate. So when this happens, say we have a student who engages in a concerning action or makes a statement that's troublesome or is found with something on them that could harm another student, we mobilize the threat assessment team. Last year, we trained our SROs, North Bay Security Company, our school psychologists, counselors, administrators, and district office staff to ensure that if and when this happens, we have clear protocols and a clear response. The team comes together and examines the evidence that the principal has been able to gather about the event, and then they engage in utilizing some research-based rubrics that are based on the Virginia model to assess whether the risk falls into one of three categories. The first is a transient threat, which means that the team looks at the threat and feels that it was time-specific and not a threat that would be acted upon, and so there's not really that sufficient evidence to feel that there's violent potential. Moderate risk is that the team may determine that there's a substantive element to the risk they're evaluating and that this individual may pose an imminent danger to themselves or to others. Oftentimes this will come without a specific plan. And so that's what qualifies it in that moderate realm. But when that happens, the team then plans for that student to take further actions to ensure their safety. Many times this looks like calling police and having the police involved. They're already a member of the team, and if they suggest that escalation should occur, they'll make that recommendation. But what's more common is really we get in mental health professionals and parents to address what's giving rise to the concerning behavior. Should the threat team decide that the threat is very serious and substantive, this means that they may pose an imminent danger to self or others and have perhaps a viable plan to do harm or extreme and persistent behaviors, or there's sufficient evidence that there's violence potential. then that would trigger immediate action. What's great about our threat assessment team in Novato is we do have Novato Police Department a participant in that analysis, and so they're able to easily mobilize a search at the home, or if need be, take the child into custody. Additionally, we have a psychologist in the room, so again, if we're looking at a threat to harm self that is deemed high risk, we have immediate liaisons to the community resources to take care of that child. So we're really proud about this structure. We implemented it last year and kind of got familiar with it. I sat in many of those threat assessment teams last year. And this year we began the year with a review of our protocols to make sure that this is firmly in place. One of the great benefits is it alleviates, having been that lone school site principal myself, it really alleviates those sleepless nights because the principal is able to focus on gathering data that they then present to this really educated panel who look at what the behavior is or the action through their lens. We bring in a peer principal, so it's not just the principal making decision and on the way home wondering, I wonder if I got that right. Rather, it's divested into this multidisciplinary lens and something we're really proud of in Novato Unified, and we have seen it work. Superintendent Costco sent a Costco.
Can I have a question? Can we have questions
Yeah.
during your presentation, or would you like to finish?
What's that?
Can we have questions during?
Oh,
or?
absolutely. Let's go.
So it looked like we were going to move on to something, another part of the crisis and thing, but I just wanted to have a little bit more of a conversation on this one, because you didn't talk about what defined targeted, and I kind of want to know what our policy is as far as identifying what targeting means.
So our threat assessment team has a lot of questions that they'll go through to really break down what targeted means. Things like, I'm gonna do something horrible can oftentimes just be a transient statement, just as expression of frustration, and so the team gets to really use a sequence of questions to answer that for themselves. If it's more directed at an individual or a member of staff, that qualifies it as something of higher concern that the task force is supposed to examine and see if the viability, is this something that tomorrow at school will continue to be exacerbated, or do we have reason to believe that there'll be a de-escalation in emotions or in the statement, and so that targeted thing is something that heightens concern for that team.
Okay, some more questions later, maybe. Or
Okay, Trustee Cooper's got a
I
question.
have a question right now. So you said we started this last year? So it was in place the entire school year or part of the school year?
I believe it was October.
Okay, that's.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
So I'm just kind of curious, based on these three assessment levels, low risk, moderate risk, and high risk, last year, how many occurrences of each of those did we have, would you say? Did we have any?
I'll have to go back and see where we captured the data. I know I was in about 6 of them, and I would say that 2 escalated immediately to that higher level action, and the rest tended to be something that was just more an inappropriate and poor decision on a child.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I was going to mention that Superintendent Costco sent out an email to parents just this week, really notifying them about this process. We felt like last year was kind of our pilot year. We were getting our feet under us. But in the future, every year, we'll make sure that we send that notice out to parents so they're understanding that if and when this happens, what the protocol will be that kicks into place. The next element that I've got Katie here to kind of go over is our school crisis intervention team.
Good evening, President Butler, trustees, Superintendent Koska. Really, I've had an introduction to our district almost kind of like a trial by fire. We've had 2 school crises that I immediately kind of went into. And the best way, I think, to illustrate what you see in kind of a cold, it's colorful, but just words slide, is to kind of talk you through what I observed when I was participating in the crisis intervention work, both at Loma Verde and most recently at San Marin High. So if you go through all of the different steps, I got a text Sunday evening, the same Sunday evening that the crisis at San Marin took place, and it was from my supervisor explaining what happened. I got into San Marin about 7 a.m. on Monday morning. When I arrived at San Marin High School, what one would see as you walked on campus was early arrival of a lot of different adults who form at different intervals part of the crisis intervention team. Going into the library, Dr. Sims said very clearly, I want to be the person to message my staff around that. The staff was gathered into the library before school started. Dr. Sims made sure that his staff had information about what it was that went on and how they were going to inform the student body. So it was, even though this was a time fraught with sadness and pain and frustration and anger and all of those things that senseless things bring on, Dr. Sims, backed by the school district's intervention team, had a very thoughtful process about how we were going to get this day started and what was going to go on. As we move further down this graph, you can see that after crisis response team, it forks off into 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 different entities. And in that library, along with the school staff, you saw representatives from Bay Area Community Resources, North Marin Community Services, Novato PD, the cabinet level staff from the district office, ready to go ahead and be part of the support systems. So it was decided that the library, the Learning Center at San Marin, would be the place that we would support students who felt that they needed, that being in class was a little too much given the gravity of the circumstances. Team members from BACR, North Marin Community Services, and our own school district psychologists and counselors. North Bay Security, sorry, I didn't see one of those. North Bay Security Group in addition to the 7, so that brings the total of our community partners up to 8. It was decided all of the folks giving direct services to students put their heads together, and we established a system for bringing students into the library. It was decided that that very first day, students could just walk out of class. We didn't need them to explain to teachers what was going on here. They understood where the resources were. So in the library were counselors and support staff from all of these different agencies working in tandem in support of our students. At the end of the first day, I will mention that the call went out upon receipt of the text from Amy to the Marin Humane Society. So on the very first day, we had comfort dogs arriving at regular intervals who seamlessly wove themselves in to where there was a need. At the end of the first day, all of the direct support to students got together and debriefed on how the day went. We made some adjustments and decided that there was going to be an intake process where every kid had to meet with an adult upon entering the library before deciding what was going to happen with them for the rest of the day. All the different staffs from those different agencies involved in direct services used a common form for tracking the students who came in and then tracking basically what the distribution of those students was. Was this someone that the intake person felt needed to be brought back down to the library at a later time to do another check-in, for instance? Simultaneously, our own school district staff prepared a Google spreadsheet that was shared with all of the teachers at San Marin High School. And in the spreadsheet, teachers could list students that they themselves witnessed really kind of struggling throughout the day that they felt might need a check-in with adults. They also were able, because all of these different agencies didn't have the particular knowledge of students that our teachers in the classroom do. They were able to cue our staff community group together about students that we should call down to check in with. Maybe they knew that they had a particular relationship with the student who passed. Maybe they knew that their cousins were somebody, they were cousins with, who, one of the two students who were injured in the car. So as soon as we addressed the crisis cases that came into the library themselves, we planfully went and sent call slips for all of the students that were recommended to us, referred to us in that teacher document. Again, at the end of the second day, we met again and decided what level of support we needed. BACR said, okay, we'll bring down our support to only one person. North Marin Community Services, we really need a Spanish-speaking counselor because the students involved in the crash were Latino and came from families where English was the main language. So I'm trying to paint the picture of these different groups coming together in support of our students and making plans and critiquing ourselves as the process went on and according to the needs that were presented to us at the time. So the system of all hands on deck the first day and a meet together to decide levels of service for the next day progressed for the next few days until we were out of the library, in the office, and dealing with one or two students and making sure that we had checked in with all of the students referred to us by the teachers. So again, this is by way of illustrating for you a system that is in ready should any other crises come about. This is not something that was, oh, let's just kind of wing it and go forward from there. These are supports that are kind of lying in wait in the tall grass in case something happens so that they can spring forward and give these support services. Now you see in front of you a bulleted list that kind of talks about a lot of the pieces that the crisis intervention team manages. Campus safety plan, emotional first aid for students and staff. The crisis at Loma Verde involved a family that there was, at the school site itself, the kid that had the accident plus 4 siblings and a sibling at the middle school and a sibling at the high school. So this was a large family who was very well known to the school staff. So that emotional first aid for students and staff, this was quite a young kid who was affected. So we made sure that we were touching bases with not just the classroom teacher, but the classroom teacher of all the siblings involved, and making sure that the adults on campus also got support and knew where support was in case they needed to avail themselves of it. I also want to raise up Mark Sims, who, if you talk about resources for teachers, parents related to the impact or the fourth bullet down, visitations at home or hospital, Dr. Sims and his staff went through heroic lengths to make sure that they visited with the family of the deceased student and went to go see their students in 2 separate hospitals, I believe one in Oakland and one down in Stanford. So these people really are vested in making sure that that homeschool connection is real and the families understand and know where they can go to seek out support. I believe I've covered all the pieces we need to cover, so I will turn it back over to Dr. Carter.
Dr. Sims, where's he located?
San Marin High. Yep.
Well, Katie captured the sentiment well that when incidents like these happen, we aren't just winging it. We do have real concrete plans and templates and forms that we immediately implement and trigger into action. The last safety team that I want to make sure that the school board and our community knows about is our incident command system. This team manages our emergency response and crisis management. So if there were an earthquake, a fire, an event of great and significant proportions at one of our school sites or at multiple of our school sites, every year we drill how we will do this. There's safety kits that are at the ready, and we're prepared to establish new lines of communication. We all have a very clear role that we drill every year, and binders that really drive our action and thinking around this. To highlight the importance of safety, I really want to convey to you that safety is our priority. You know, we talk about a lot up here, but every meeting that I'm in, the topic of safety is constantly at the forefront and something that we vigilantly plan for and prepare for. Any questions?
Trustee Aguila.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I have a question. For these, so page 4, is this the people that are coming, the agencies that come in to help? That's not limited to, right?
No, that's just a sampling of where we start.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So like North Bay Security or FSA and Nevada Youth Center, former Nevada. Okay. So just wondering about that. And so I know we set a policy where parents are informed, and I can't read this page on page 6 because these are old glasses, and I haven't had my eyes checked. But if we could get, meantime, before I get my eyes checked, can we get a larger print of this?
Absolutely,
This is
I'll
so
shoot
important.
that out. Yep.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also the other thing is, this is such good information and so important. How are we sharing this to the community? And are we including this to the Latino community too?
Yep, absolutely. In our messaging, so a lot of our messaging this month has been around safety. Superintendent Koska's email out to the community included a lot of resources and links for people to understand that. One of the things that I failed to mention is this year we rolled out the Stop It app. And that enables students to report bullying anonymously from their phones, but they can also report students who are of concern anonymously. So that's a great tool that we're utilizing. But communicating about safety is something that never stops. We have to continually be making sure that our parents are aware of what's available for their students. And our communications director, Leslie Benjamin, has already mapped out how those communications will roll out throughout the year.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gasson, Millerick, and Cooper.
So you touched on one of my questions. I actually just have two. It was the Stop It app, because my daughter was informed about that in middle school, so I think it's great. I don't think we've actually utilized it, but it says on the your report that there's no cost. So is that some kind of app that's just free?
How do we fund that, Leslie?
Okay, great.
So
Great.
Haas Family Fund.
Okay, thank you. And then just so I went through all these different manuals, and I know you know that. So the Crisis Response Report from Marin Community Health and Human Services has a section on page 27 about prepare for anniversaries and special events. And because I'm so bad at remembering things like that, it triggered a thing, a question. How are we doing that? How are we tracking these things? Because that does seem to be a very significant piece within their report. So are we doing something internally that we know for those dates? And these highlight some other dates as well, not just the date of incident, but other things.
I know that the high schools who have suffered some of those losses more intimately are cognizant of that. And that's something that they prepare for. Additionally, we take advantage of things like Suicide Intervention Month to really capitalize on those moments and get those messaging out. But we are aware of those heightened moments and take every effort to be prepared should those anniversaries trigger strong emotions.
Okay. Trustee Miller? Trustee Cooper?
Thank you for the presentation. In terms of the incident command model, which you have a slide for. Yeah, perfect. The one I can't read. That's okay. How do we elect, or how do you declare an incident? What's the process? It may be an auto accident, it may be an earthquake, it may be a power outage because of a fire. What's the process to go from everything's fine, oops, something has to happen? Who's paying attention? And
so at the top of that flow chart, we have someone called Incident Commander, who I'll turn it over to.
Okay.
Superintendent.
So one of the things about the incident command structure is it's very flexible. So we have the opportunity to pull as many or as few people together as we feel like we need in a given situation. So, thankfully, we haven't had an incident wherein we had to pull the whole team together. Yeah. However, we have had many incidences where we pulled the top 3 bars of that structure together. So some examples would be dealing with the smoke. But before dealing with the smoke, we had the day of the fires where, the fires were raging all over the place and, we didn't know where they were. We didn't know where they were going. We didn't know if people could get to work. So in those instances, I use my discretion and work very closely with our brilliant team to figure out who are the right people to get into the room. And then we scale it as appropriate, and people move in and out of the structure. But it's a very flexible structure. It's the same structure that's used by cities and fire and police.
So do you practice that at some event? I mean, I know we have an emergency generator, but I don't know the last time we practiced a command center exercise here.
Yeah, we practice it annually at least.
Mm-hmm.
We work with a gentleman named Lonnie Trustee that helps us in those situations. We take all the stuff out of the container. We have the container out in the parking lot. We break the things out. We make sure we get everything set up. We go through a simulation of an incident. And we also change this chart frequently as people come in and out of the system. So this is very much a living thing.
Okay.
And as Leslie was saying, schools have the same structure.
Right, okay. So there's I assume if the principal's not on campus, they're at MCOE in a meeting, there's a delegate who can begin the process and carry it forward until they get relieved by an appropriate person.
Yeah, there are alternates for each position.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that in every principal's office, right by the door, there's a red binder that if something, you pick that up as you head out, and it's got all the contact information, so you basically have a portable, because you may not be able to stay in the office. The event may be such that you have to physically go to the gym or be out in the field, or is that a fair statement?
Yep, and all of those strategies have very detailed plans. We're advised to not make those public documents. That's why it wasn't included in the board report because of safety concerns. But we have logistical and facilities plans for access and ingress. And
I'll just say I've gone through it, and I've been an angry parent and stuff. So at least at ours, I know a couple of other schools do it as well, or from personal friends. But you go through a thing that we have this scenario. They have their book out, and they have the alternates who's doing it, and I'm impressed, and I've done emergency preparedness for years and stuff, and they've really got a good handle on a lot of it. And I do not do well being an angry parent.
Oh, you played the angry parent role?
Yeah, that was my task.
That's good. It's good.
Trustee Cooper,
everybody's
and then
got
Trustee
their specialty. It's good.
Thank you very much for this great presentation, both of you. I especially like your analogy of waiting in the hot, tall grass, because that's exactly what we need to do. We need to be totally ready and at a moment's notice. I had a question about the app. So the app is, so I text something, I send a message off. Where does that go?
goes immediately to the administrator's inbox, and then there's also several of us that are oversee that.
So
and
to us,
yeah.
it comes to one of us.
Yep.
Okay.
And if the reporting isn't addressed by the administrator within, I think, 24 hours, I will get a phone call letting me know that something's been reported and not been acted on, so it's a very, yep. And then you can ask clarifying questions, you know, where is it, what do you know, you can
that's awesome.
engage in a little back and forth, and we find it works really well for this
Okay.
generation.
That's perfect. That sounds great. Any idea of what kind of use is that getting? I know it's brand new, but.
We're gonna pull a snapshot report for you.
I was out at Sinaloa this past week, end of last week, and I talked with Principal Wallace about that, and he mentioned that first week he got a number as it was getting rolled out. He got a lot of things. Some were appropriate to be sent, some weren't quite so appropriate. But since then, it's really narrowed down. It's been very appropriate. It's been very helpful for kids and adults. It's working swimmingly.
And I guess the only other thing I would want to make sure that we remind periodically through the course of the year, remind everybody, our students, that this is available to them.
Yep.
Trustee Gila.
So back to this chart. And because I'm sorry, because I can't see it, I'm not sure. So it's going to be applied to NUSD, correct? Is have the NUSD staff people?
Yes, so we
Yeah.
do have an NUSD specific one with
Okay.
our names and our contact numbers, but we didn't want to
Okay.
make that available.
Okay, that one, because that one, since we don't have it, I'm not sure, we don't have it. So when you make this larger, can you put the date also, like the revised date?
Yep,
So it's
absolutely.
because I know that the ones for NUSD is going to be changing according to employment, so just to make sure that the date is revised. Thank you.
I'll send one to the superintendent in a board memo.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other further questions? This was a thorough, great report, and yes. Yes?
This is one of the things that gives me the greatest peace in this district, honestly. I never want to get that phone call, and unfortunately we got that phone call 2 Sundays in a row. So the place that I go to is a place of care and concern for the families. The place I don't need to go to is, are we going to be able to manage this crisis well? Because we do a great job of this. I know that when an incident happens, the school, the student, the families are going to be in the best of care because we have this system in place. So I just want to point that out, that this is one of the things that we do best, and it's one of the most important things that we can do.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Trustee Miller.
We're a suburban school district. There are parents that leave this town in the morning, and if they have to come take care of their kids, they are at 2 hours away at the best, and they need to know that the public education system here can fill the gap between the time they know they need to drop their work and get here as fast as possible and the 2 or 3 or 4 hours later when they can actually take custody of their family and take their immediate responsibility. And it's you're not the only one that's proud of this institution's ability to stand up and serve that continuity of safety for our family. It's something that I'm proud of, and this community does well through the police department and the school district and all the public agencies from human needs on up. So thank you for bringing up the topic.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Miller. All right. We will, as I said at the beginning, we will close this meeting in memory of Mary Ann Sinkonen, a past principal and teacher of NUSD. So this meeting is adjourned, and our next regular scheduled meeting is November 5th, which gives staff a nice little break, much more than just a little more than 2 weeks, which is nice. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.